Dr. Blackwood, you've got some concern, shall we say, about this internal investigation about to be conducted by the Health and Social Services. Why is this?
Well, I actually, back in January 2008, went to see the new Health Minister, Ben Shenton, and the Deputy, Jim Pershad, to express concerns that I've had for some time about the integrity of the current Chief Executive, Mike Pollard. These are only concerns that I feel should be investigated. I don't have any definite proof. But I went through things that seemed to me to have something odd about them with them. And we came down to one particular issue, and this is covered in an email that I have here that I sent out in July to Senator Shenton and copied along to I think 9 other states members. And what it focused down on was one particular incident where it would be fairly easy to check whether two seemingly opposing accounts, which of them are accurate. And that related to a serious matter of the resignation of the then Deputy Chief Executive. And this occurred in December 2005, around the time that there was some turmoil, there having been a vote of no confidence in that Deputy Chief Executive by the hospital consultants, and a vote of no confidence in the senior management of the health service by the nursing staff. So it was a time of great tension. And basically what happened is that according to the Deputy Chief Executive, the first that she learnt of her resignation was when it appeared in the Jersey Evening Post. And according to the article in the Jersey Evening Post, they had been informed by the then Health Minister, Senator Stuart Sivray, that the Deputy Chief Executive had resigned. Now, the Deputy Chief Executive has told me on several occasions and been quite consistent that she never resigned.
So where did Senator Stuart Sivray get his information from then?
Well, I've discussed this with Senator Sivray, and he was informed by Mike Pollard, the Chief Executive, that his deputy had resigned. And he has been quite consistent in saying that. Mike Pollard has been silent on the matter, although questions have been raised by me in medical bodies about this. He has been quite silent on the matter.
Why do you think this is? Why has Mr. Pollard been so silent on such a serious matter?
Well, that's not for me to say, but I just feel that it should be investigated. I mean, things like this, where you have two senior members of staff giving contradictory accounts, one saying that she never resigned, and apparently, Mr. Pollard saying she did resign. This shouldn't be left hanging. It's quite easy to investigate, and if anybody needs some disciplining regarding it, proceeding along those lines. So that was the reason. That wasn't the only issue that I took to the two states members that I mentioned, but it was one that they actually focused on as having a fairly easy solution, because it was them who pointed out to me that a person of the seniority of a Deputy Chief Executive would not resign verbally, that there must be a letter of resignation.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems fairly
that's pretty obvious, yeah.
And it was them that said it, and I felt, that's very good. And I think there may have been some misunderstanding, because I left the meeting with them believing that they were going to check whether this letter of resignation existed. And subsequent to that, I myself retired as a planned retirement from the Jersey Health Service, where I'd worked for 15 years, and went abroad for a time. And when I returned, I took the matter up by contacting them and asking, whether there had been any progress.
This was, who did you contact?
Well, I actually wrote to several of them, my own local deputies from the, St Helier 3, members of the scrutiny body, and Senator Shenton and Senator Pershard, because I felt this was an important issue that was still left hanging. And I don't know how that has panned out. The last I know is that Senator Shenton and the Deputy Chief Executive were going to link up. I believe the Deputy Chief Executive, the ex-one, was going to contact him. I've had no further feedback on that.
So as things stand at the minute, you believe we have a Deputy Chief Executive Officer who says she didn't resign, and we have a health service in the way of possibly Mike Pollard, and who say she did resign, but we've seen no proof of a resignation letter. Is that correct?
That's as I understand it. I mean, there are some possibilities. Maybe Senator Shenton did check and found the letter and hasn't told me. No, that would surprise me. But I do think that is correct. I mean, there may be the simplest of explanations. I just don't know. I just feel that this is something that should be investigated. It shouldn't be left standing. It
could tie a few things up if you were to see that resignation letter, or at least its existence was acknowledged, that there is a resignation letter somewhere. And
that's right. If there was a resignation letter, then clearly the account given to me by the Deputy Chief Executive would be incorrect, and I'd have to go back to her and see what had happened and whether there'd been some misunderstanding and so on.
So you think there's a chance there could be somebody's telling some porky pies round here?
Well, there's always a chance of that, isn't there? I mean, or it may be a misunderstanding or whatever. But it wasn't the sole incident that had raised concerns. Indeed, I actually, under the formal process for raising concerns about employees, I actually wrote in, I'm trying to remember this, it was early in 2007, about a series of concerns I then had about Mr. Pollard. But again, I must say these are all allegations that may turn out to have simple explanations, but at the time, they were there and were worrying me. Because if it's important that a leader in an organisation such as this has absolute integrity, that people can trust what he says. If you can't trust and believe what somebody in his position is saying, then nothing works. So it was, and what I was told was that it would be looked into.
Your serious concerns complaint.
Because it would be looked into, but at that time I myself was under investigation for a complaint of bullying and harassment, which subsequently was dismissed. But because that was ongoing, they felt that wasn't appropriate to proceed with the investigation. Once that case was dismissed, I did inform...
Sorry, when the case was dismissed, was it found in your favour or not?
The case was dismissed against me, yes. It was found to have no substance.
Found to have no substance.
And then, there actually were great problems about the integrity of how Mr. Pollard had conducted that investigation. But these are matters that I never pursued because I was actually retiring shortly afterwards. That again had been a matter that had been concerning.
So your serious concerns complaint so far hasn't actually been investigated. Is this because you've retired and it doesn't matter any longer, or?
I think actually, if I remember right, it was a procedure for a state's employee, and as I am no longer a state's employee, I assumed that complaint lapsed.